Hello and welcome to week 3 of the term. So this week and next week we are looking at something called unity. So trying to create unity within your painting. So often when you see me painting, at the beginning when I start, I kind of tend to put a kind of a general kind of wash over everything, and I kind of plonk the colours in roughly where they're meant to be. So by doing this, what I'm doing is I'm creating a very kind of uniform, not a uniform, but a kind of a lovely sort of mix of colours kind of underneath, from which I can then kind of build up. So this is what we're doing for the next 2 weeks. Is really sort of, I'd like you to sort of just have a go at really kind of at really doing it, and also we're going to do it together on one picture, which is this one here that I've already emailed to you, and then we'll practice it again with the second painting. And again, we'll do the same picture again. And I think for me, this is the most kind of fundamental part of my painting, is to create that kind of harmony and unity with the colours that I'm using underneath in that first layer. So let's just look at the colours, because we're going to be working in black and white. So what I'm going to suggest is a primary colour palette, mainly. So I've got here French ultramarine, I've got permanent rose, but if you don't have permanent rose, please substitute that with alizarin crimson, Winsor yellow. So again, you can substitute that for cadmium yellow if you don't have the Winsor yellow. So that's going to be our kind of primary set, and then we also need sort of some colours that are going to kind of give us some darks as well. So with that, I've got a burnt umber, and I've also got a burnt sienna, just because I kind of would like a kind of warmer brown as well. And so that gives me a lovely sort of broad range of colours that I can mix. So the first thing to do is really to look at our black and white picture, and just to really notice what's going on with it in terms of tone. So we can see that we've got this kind of darker area here. So it almost kind of feels like this part of the building is in shadow and this part here is in the light. And then obviously we've got this section here, which is very much in shadow as well. So it's really important to try and really look at the picture and kind of get an understanding for what's going on in the picture, where the shadows are going, even the fact that these window panes, the kind of wooden part of the windows is lighter here and it's darker on this side. What's going on with the door? Is it white? Is it a grey? All of these things. So please have a really, really good look at the picture even before you get started. Okay, so let's get started. So we are going to put kind of a very sort of general wash all over the painting, and once again, kind of, because we're working in black and white, we're having to kind of make up quite a lot of these colours. So we're just going to kind of imagine what's there really, or you can take my final painting as a kind of indication. So let's first of all put the sky in. Okay, so let's mix up a little green here. So maybe the shadow is kind of falling in that kind of direction, and then maybe things get a little more kind of sort of blue as it comes perhaps on this side, so we can kind of Okay, so what I've done over the whole entire picture is just use my my sort of primary colours together with a little bit of the burnt sienna, and just kind of dropped in colours. So you know it's really beautiful the way that is kind of you know bleeding over onto that side. You know I've got lots of you know sort of interesting things starting to happen, and now the main thing is to kind of leave this to dry really kind of quite naturally. So don't you know don't rush this process, just let it dry completely. You can even, if you wanted to, kind of, oops, sorry, you can even kind of take that off, you know, and kind of give that a bit of a shake, you know, let those colours mix and merge. So you know, the painting at this stage needs to be wet enough for the paint to be able to kind of move around. Give it a little bit of a shake. So once you're kind of happy with the way it's looking, then just put it back down on your board and really sort of leave it, you know, until it's completely dry. So time to really go and have a cup of tea, and I'll see you back here in a minute. Okay, so I've left this now for about an hour or so, and it's nice and dry, and you can see how all the colours have really sort of beautifully merged in with one another, you know, quite sort of naturally. So the next thing to do is to kind of go back to our picture and have a look and see what the next thing to do is. So for me, it would be looking at some of those kind of darker areas. So there's a tonal difference between, for example, the roof and this kind of hill in the sorry, just behind the cottage. This wall here is darker than whatever is happening here, this kind of grassy verge. You know, tonally, those two are very much the same. So remember, that's what we're looking at. And there is very much a kind of sense of light sort of coming kind of across like that. Let me just get a stronger kind of marker. So, you know, it comes across almost kind of like this. I don't know whether you can kind of see that. But that's what I'm kind of, you know, there seems to be, this bit is more in shadow and this is in the light. So that's what I'm kind of looking at next with this. So now I'm kind of mixing up maybe a kind of green. So remember that the more blue something is, remember that it's kind of receding. The warmer something is, it's kind of coming towards us. So I'm kind of got a kind of mid colour here, which you can see there. So I'm going to kind of start with putting that in first. So the edge of. So at this stage, now I can start being a little bit more kind of careful with the way that I'm painting. Okay, so just by doing that, it already kind of sets that kind of cottage forward. So I'm going to work my way down, kind of across into this sort of darker area. So here, we've got this lovely sort of blue on this kind of cottage. And I'm continually changing the colour as I'm kind of going along. Okay, so I'm going to stop there and allow that to dry. So I've tried to kind of look at this in a kind of tonal way. So I'm putting the darker colours almost kind of where they need to be. This is also going to be in shadow, and I've tried to keep the lighter areas as light as I can. So I'll let this dry, and then we'll kind of do the last bit, the finishing touches. Okay, so that's more or less dry, and we can kind of do the second stage. So, sorry, the last stage. So this is now really about going into those super sort of dark areas and really kind of pulling it together. Because we've got this lovely sort of base to work on where we've got our first layer, our second layer, and now we're going to bring in our third and final layer. And hopefully that will kind of just, bring everything together. Okay, so I think that is now done. I'm not going to do anything more to that, but you can see how I've built up the image from that first layer, the second layer, and finally that third layer. And there is a sort of real unity with the background, because I've got some of that lovely sort of colour seeping through into this kind of front wall. And I probably wouldn't have had that had I you know, treated this as the front of the building and kind of carried on painting, you know, section by section. But by doing this kind of unifying kind of wash in the background, it really just kind of pulls everything together. So have a go at doing this this one and see how you get on. And then next week we'll apply the same kind of thinking, but to a different picture. Okay, so enjoy.